Now, what I do find really interesting is we now have CEOs of billion-dollar firms predicting that the Bitcoin 4-year cycle is over. Let's listen to Matt Hougan here in this new clip.
Is it over?
Yeah.
Woo.
It's over.
Okay, hold on. Explain.
Well, I mean, so my view of the 4-year cycle is you have a catalyst that brings new pools of capital in. So 2011, it was the launch of Coinbase. Retail investors could buy Bitcoin, new capital, then leverage builds up and eventually it pops. 2015, the introduction of Ethereum. 2019, DeFi. 2023, it was Grayscale winning its lawsuit in March against the SEC. We're going to get ETFs bringing in capital. The reason I think it's probably not going to play out over 4 years is I think that's a longer inflow of capital than retail hot ball of money, which was the past 3. And then secondly, we have yet another of those catalysts in November, which is the election completely changing the game in terms of institutional adoption. So even if the ETF-driven cycle would have built up, leveraged, and popped and receded, we have this second tidal wave that's just so much bigger than that first one. It's going to overwhelm it. So will there be, pullbacks? We're seeing one now as leverage comes out of the system, of course. But the election was such a sea change that it's like, it doesn't matter. Yes, there may be this natural thing, but it's just going to get bulldozed over. That doesn't mean we've repealed pullbacks, but I think this cycle is going to be much longer than people think. I definitely don't think this pullback is the end. I think 2025 will be a great year. I think 2026 will be a great year. I think 2027 will be a great year. And we'll see about 2028.
So is the traditional Bitcoin 4-year cycle over? Are we going to see these big 18-month pullbacks? I thought Matt Hougan mentioned something really interesting. We've got 2 catalysts entering the space in the past 12 months that typically, historically, help to drive a 12-month Bitcoin bull run. So in 2017, we had the big ICO retail bubble enter the Bitcoin space. 2021, we kind of had the beginnings of Bitcoin being embraced by the billionaires, with Michael Saylor putting it on the balance sheet of MicroStrategy. But we've just seen potentially 2 catalysts emerge in the past 12 months. We've got ETFs coming online, and now we have nation states coming online. And both of these guys are slower allocators to Bitcoin. A lot of these guys are not just going to hit smash buy whenever they see Bitcoin and they think it's an attractive price. They're going to slowly scale into a position, which is why I think Matt Hougan's case for why we're not going to see traditional 4-year cycles continue, it's a pretty compelling case, I'm not going to lie. And at the same time, we're literally seeing billionaires come out and say Bitcoin is worth an infinite amount of US dollars. Don't you love that? That's from Tim Draper. Now, for those who don't know, Tim Draper is actually one of the oldest OG Bitcoin holders there is. I actually saw a pretty cool tweet by a power law proponent earlier in the week. It's a good tweet. We can see here, Tim Draper reportedly squatting on around 100,000 coins. Just think about that for a minute. He's a serious whale. So for him to be coming out and saying, like, look, Bitcoin's worth an infinite amount of fiat money, I think that's pretty big and it's pretty telling. But let's actually analyze what Matt Hougan said in the clip. What did he say? He said, look, ETF flows could be a little bit more of a slow burn, so to say. Matt Hougan is saying, look, maybe the 4-year cycle is dead because the entrants in the Bitcoin space right now, they're a little bit smarter. They allocate money a little bit more slowly. Is this true? Let's have a look at what the ETFs have done in their first 18 months. It is nearly 18 months, or about 15 or 16 months since they launched back in January 2024. We can see like this thing is just stair-stepping higher. It's grinding higher. The Bitcoin held by ETFs right now is, by the looks of things, just hit a new all-time high at the time of recording, which is pretty crazy to see. Looks like everybody is allocating to these ETFs hand over fist. And every time we see a correction, we're only seeing very small drawdowns in the total ETF holdings. Even when Bitcoin recently corrected by, what was it? It was something like 20% recently. The ETFs only drew down by something like 1 to 2% in total holdings. So these guys are pretty They got sticky hands. They don't have slippery lettuce hands like good friend Dave Portnoy. No. These guys, they look like they're holding Bitcoin for the long term. Maybe they're waiting for $1 million Bitcoin next weekend. I think the probabilities of that happening pretty low. I think they're probably higher than most people think, but I don't think it's higher than 1%. 60K before continuing. Renee thinks we're heading to $60,000. I'm not so sure about that. Don't hold your breath. Yeah, most altcoins are going to get absolutely wrecked. What I do find really interesting is what No Second Best here actually mentioned in the chat. We're seeing something kind of unprecedented right now. We're seeing Bitcoin dominance just continue to rip and rise, which is pretty fascinating. I might pull you up a chart so you guys can see what we're looking at here. Now, I think this chart's really consequential because let's not forget, altcoins, they're free to create. It's free to create an altcoin. Anybody can create an altcoin and create $1 million or a $5 million market cap out of thin air with a couple of Twitter posts, right? So this thing really, like, there can be a case to be made that this thing should be trending down for a long time. But the fact that Bitcoin right now, compared to altcoins, is at a 4-year high, this is pretty telling. This is, I think it's really telling. I think it's telling us, hey, you know, maybe there's some signs that this cycle is a little bit different. Again, what is the theme of this video? Could this cycle be different? Is the Bitcoin 4-year cycle different this time? I don't know, and again, nobody does, but these allocators that Matt Hougan mentioned in his video and his interview with Pomp, these allocators, the sovereign wealth funds, the nation states, the ETFs, they're not allocating to altcoins. Again, what happened with the launch of the Ethereum ETF? It was an absolute disaster. It was embarrassingly bad. It was really bad. It was so bad, I'm surprised they didn't give the investors their money back. It was not a good showing. So I think we've already seen very clearly over the past 18 months that Bitcoin is different to these altcoins. Buying Bitcoin is very, very different. Again, I would encourage you, please, I would encourage you to not buy Bitcoin in these ETFs, like what BlackRock is trying to convince its users to do. Because by the looks of it, you know, and we can see a lot of people right now are trusting BlackRock with their ETFs. They're trusting exchanges with their Bitcoin. Again, I wouldn't be trusting anyone with your Bitcoin because this is the whole reason why Bitcoin is valuable. I saw this news article. I thought it was funny. Who knows whether it's real or not, but I think it makes a pretty interesting point. Confirmed, French farmer discovers a gold mine worth 4 billion euros in his garden, but the state confiscates it from him. I think whether this news headline is true or not, I didn't have the time to really investigate it deeply, but I saw it and I just thought it made a good point, okay? Buying real estate is not the same as buying Bitcoin. I think a lot of real estate investors have been lulled into this false sense of achievement is a spicy word, but lulled sense of security. I think that's a better way to frame it. I think a lot of real estate investors kind of think like, you know, oh, I own my land, it's doing great, I'm such a great investor. But I think this meme here kind of sums it up. Real estate is not outpacing the inflation rate, largely. If you look at global real estate, it's up 6 to 7%, and the global money supply is expanded by about 7 to 8%. So real estate is underperforming the expansion of the global money supply. And there'll be some people watching this video saying, but Luke, I own real estate in Toronto, Sydney, Vancouver, LA, or some of the best performing real estate markets in the world, Texas, Austin. And that could be true, you have. But have you factored into all of the time you spent trying to become a property portfolio whiz kid with 5 or 10 properties? Have you factored in all of the extra taxes, land taxes? In Australia, we have something called stamp duty. You have to pay something like 15 or 20K just to the government for buying a home, right? It's insane. It's absolutely insane the amount of taxes and extra costs that are associated with buying real estate or trying to, you know, outperform Bitcoin. I just think, you know, inflation, has helped a lot of these real estate investors. I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin, there is no second best. I really do think there's no second best. Now, I love some of the questions. You can live in real estate. That is true. But I don't know whether it's worth owning 5 different homes. This is more the investor I'm pointing a finger to. Again, politely pointing a finger. I'm just saying, look, is it really wise to own 5 homes and be a property portfolio whiz kit? I'm not so sure. That's all I will say. Look, I've made the argument before. My argument for the past 5 years hasn't changed. If less than 10% of your net worth is tied up in real estate, then I don't think real estate's a shitcoin, because obviously you do get some sort of advantages and benefits to owning real estate, especially depending upon what stage of your life you are at. But again, I think having more than 10% of your net worth tied up into real estate, not the best move. Again, that's just my opinion. And again, my current portfolio reflects that opinion, and it has for the past 7 or 8 years. Very tempting to buy a home, and I don't know how many of you guys have seen the video on the channel, but I ripped up my approved mortgage to buy a home in Australia back in 2018 because I started learning about Bitcoin. Anyway, that's probably a story for another day, because again, I don't want to talk about real estate all day. I think I've made my point. I think Bitcoin is the superior asset. I don't think there is any second best. If you are looking to buy some Bitcoin, I always encourage you guys to check out what the Bitcoin Well is doing. They're not only super cool because they force you to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Again, sovereignty, something you can't get with real estate. But they also give you free tokens for buying Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Well. So again, highly recommend you check out the Bitcoin Well. And once you've bought your Bitcoin from the Bitcoin Well, I also encourage you guys to go and get your hands on some of these titanium plates that you can get from Stampseed. Again, these are titanium. These things survive hurricanes, floods, fires, absolutely everything life throws at it. Again, I tell you guys, do not write down your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words on paper. Paper will not survive everything that life wants to throw at your Bitcoin backup words. So check out what Stampseed is doing. And again, reminder, you guys can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with a promo code Luke15. Everything you need to learn about both sponsors is linked in the description of the chat. Now, okay, Shredded at 60 has his seed words stamped onto a titanium plate in his head. Again, he's talking about a brain wallet. If you are using a brain wallet, if you do have your Bitcoin backup words memorized or passphrases memorized, just be careful. Be very careful. I have tried to memorize passwords in the past. I got out of it unscathed, but I've had a few scary turns, so to say. So just be very careful with that. You might think that you remember a password very clearly, but I would encourage you guys to do a Bitcoin backup check-in every month or so you do not forget your passwords, because I nearly forgot one. But that's a story for another day. Now, again, I'm actually going to be making a video on this topic, arson fire. So I genuinely believe real estate just saw its biggest tailwind that it's seen in 5,000 years. Now I'm going to show you a chart. It's one of my favorite charts. It's the 5,000-year interest rate chart. Now, a lot of people think real estate's going to continue to do what it's done over the past 40 years. And to all of those people, I show them this chart. See this massive spike on the chart? This is interest rates skyrocketing to 20% in 1981 when Paul Volcker raised the interest rates up to 20% to fight inflation. So this obviously put a pressure on all assets around the world. Then when this rate got jacked all the way down to 0 over the past 40 years, this has been the biggest slamming down of interest rates, the biggest lowering of interest rates in human history. Of course, real estate's performed well. Interest rates got slammed from 20% to 0 in 50 years. Are we going to see that in the next 40 years? Look, I don't think so. Now, again, this chart, it's not scaled to show you the gravity of the move. But this most recent move that we're looking at in the past 50 years, it's absolutely unprecedented. It's wild, okay? So to think that real estate is going to continue to do what it's done over the past 40 years, I strongly encourage you guys to really think about this chart deeply. This chart was actually one of the materials that got me to rethink whether buying property was a good idea, if my sole goal was appreciation and treating it as an investment. Yes, I get you can live in your real estate. I understand it. Speaking about living in things, I can't live in my $50 super chat from Rock VTM. My friend, thank you so much for the super chat again. Again, we do really appreciate just all of you guys following in to watch the videos. We really appreciate that. All of the support over the past 12 to 18 months, it has certainly not gone unnoticed, and the content will continue evolving here on the channel. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but I'm doing far less live streams lately, and I am creating some videos in the background that's taking up a lot of my time. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm full-time creating content over on my personal channel now. So I'm trying to create you guys the best videos possible. So we're still going to do some live streams, bring you guys up to speed on the news in what I think is a time-efficient manner. We've only been going for 32 minutes today, but I also want to create some very, very unique videos for you guys. So again, a little bit of an update for the channel, but thank you so much for the $50 super chat, dude. Really appreciate it. To McLovin's point, thank you for your support. Now, speaking of highly produced videos and trying to create some different kinds of content here on the channel, I would be remiss if I didn't mention to you guys, I did recently interview Samson Mao here on the channel just recently. If you missed that one, I'm going to put a link to that video up on screen somewhere around there. And I'm also going to put a link to another video that I filmed a couple of weeks ago, one of these more highly produced in-depth deep dives where I show that you might be able to retire on 0.00375 Bitcoin. I'm going to put a link to that video up over there. Again, as crazy as it sounds, you might want to watch those videos because we did a full breakdown and a full deep dive on those topics. And with that said, thank you so much to 712 of you guys tuning in between Twitter and YouTube. I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good week.